4 months ago, I sat across from my wife in a divorce attorney's office and watched her confidently present evidence of my affair. Hotel receipts, suspicious text messages, late nights at the office, the works. She had it all organized in a neat little folder, ready to prove I was the cheater. What she didn't know was that every single piece of evidence was fake. And I had 200 pages of real evidence about her 8-month affair with her boss. Stay with me, because at minute 25, I'm going to walk you through what happened when she realized she'd been outplayed. And trust me, you won't see it coming. But first, let me take you back to where this really started. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March when everything changed. I'd gotten up for water, nothing dramatic, just thirsty, couldn't sleep, normal middle-of-the-night routine. The house was dark except for the kitchen nightlight. Jennifer was asleep upstairs. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, turned on the tap, and that's when I saw it. Her phone, face up on the kitchen counter, unlocked. The screen was still warm when I picked it up. She must have been using it right before bed and forgotten to lock it. The Messages app was open, and at the top of the screen, a conversation with someone listed as RC. The most recent message sent 20 minutes ago: "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Tell David you're working late again." My hands started shaking. I scrolled up and up and up. 8 months. 8 months of messages. Plans to meet up. Complaints about me. Inside jokes. Photos I definitely wasn't supposed to see. Ryan Cooper, RC, her boss. The guy she told me was just intense about the job. The guy I'd met twice at company events and thought seemed like a decent enough person. I stood in that kitchen for 43 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the microwave tick from 2:47 to 3:30. My coffee from earlier that night sat on the counter, stone cold. I couldn't move, couldn't think, could only scroll and read and feel my entire life crumbling into something I didn't recognize. The messages went back to July. We'd been on vacation in August. She'd smiled at me across the beach blanket, kissed me in the ocean, made love to me in our hotel room. And the whole time, she'd been texting him, making plans for when we got back, laughing about how I had no idea. There was a moment, maybe around 3:15, where I thought about waking her up, marching upstairs, shoving the phone in her face, watching her try to explain. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the software engineer in me, the part of my brain that solves problems systematically, the part that knows you don't confront a bug in the code until you understand the full scope of what's broken. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was just self-preservation, because 6 weeks earlier I'd asked her point blank if something was going on with her boss, and she'd turned it around on me so fast my head spun, called me paranoid, accused me of not trusting her, made me feel guilty for even questioning. I'd apologized, actually apologized for noticing my wife was cheating on me. I couldn't let that happen again. At 3:30, I put her phone back exactly where I'd found it, deleted my water glass from the dishwasher so there'd be no evidence I'd been downstairs, went back to bed and lay there next to her in the dark, listening to her breathe, knowing everything had just changed. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, didn't sleep much for weeks after, but by the time the sun came up Tuesday morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I was going to do something smarter. I was going to build a case. We met 7 years ago at a friend's barbecue, one of those perfect summer days where everything feels possible. She was wearing a blue sundress. I was manning the grill. She made a joke about my burger flipping technique. I made her laugh. By the end of the night, I had her number. The first year was easy. Hell, the first 5 years were easy. We wanted the same things: stable careers, a nice house, maybe kids someday. We communicated, we compromised, we built something together. The house we bought was a fixer-upper in a good neighborhood. We spent weekends renovating it, painting walls, installing new fixtures. Our life had that comfortable rhythm that people talk about when they talk about successful marriages. I'm not going to pretend it was perfect. No marriage is. We had our arguments, our rough patches, our moments of frustration, but we worked through them, or at least I thought we did. Looking back now, I can see when things started to change. It was 10 months before that Tuesday morning. 10 months before I found those messages. Jennifer got promoted at work. New role, new responsibilities, new boss. Ryan Cooper had just joined the company as CEO. Young, ambitious, the kind of guy who sent emails at midnight and expected responses by morning. At first I was proud of her. The promotion meant more money, more recognition, more opportunity. She was excited about it, talked about her projects over dinner, came home energized instead of exhausted. Then the late nights started. Ryan wants this proposal done by Friday. We have a big client dinner tonight. Sorry, babe, another late meeting. 10 p.m. became 11. 11 became midnight. I'd wake up and she'd be sliding into bed, smelling like wine and explaining about work drinks with the team. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her because what was the alternative? That my wife was lying to me? The password change should have been a red flag. She'd always had the same phone password, our anniversary. Then one day in September, it didn't work anymore. When I asked about it, she said she'd been hacked, some security breach at work. IT told everyone to change all their passwords. Made sense, except it didn't, because she changed all her passwords, email, phone, laptop, even her Amazon account. And she never told me what the new ones were. Not that I asked, because asking would have meant I didn't trust her, and I didn't want to be that husband. But 6 weeks before I found those messages, something happened that I couldn't ignore. We were supposed to have dinner together. She'd promised. No work, no distractions, just us. I'd made reservations at the Italian place we loved. But at 5:30, she texted, "So, sorry, emergency client meeting. Ryan needs me there. Save me some leftovers." I was disappointed, but understanding. Client emergencies happen. Except when I drove past her office at 7 hours on my way to grab takeout, the parking lot was empty. The building was dark. No emergency meeting, no clients. That's when I asked her. The next morning over coffee. Calm, casual, just wanting to understand. "Hey, where was that client meeting last night? The building looked pretty empty when I drove by." Her face changed, just for a second. A flash of something I'd never seen before. Then the defensive wall went up. Why was I checking up on her? Didn't I trust her? The meeting was at a restaurant, not the office. Why would I assume otherwise? Was I tracking her movements now? And somehow, by the end of that conversation, I was the one apologizing. I was the one who'd crossed a line. I was the paranoid husband who didn't trust his wife. But I didn't forget that flash in her eyes, that moment before the wall went up, because in that moment I saw the truth. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. Not until 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, standing in my kitchen reading 8 months of lies. Now I had to decide what to do about it. Let me be clear about something before I go further. What I'm about to describe, I'm sharing it to tell my story, not to teach anyone how to investigate their partner. Every relationship is different. Every situation is different. And what I did may not have been the right choice for everyone. But in my case, I needed to know the full truth. That Tuesday morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Kissed Jennifer goodbye, told her to have a good day, acted completely normal, because the one advantage I had was that she didn't know I knew. During my lunch break, I researched private investigators, found one with good reviews and former police experience. His name was Michael Williams, and when I called him, he agreed to meet me that afternoon at a coffee shop across town. Michael was late 50s, calm demeanor, the kind of guy who'd seen everything and wasn't surprised by anything anymore. I showed him the screenshots I'd taken, explained the situation. He listened without judgment, taking notes on a small pad. "If she's cheating," he said, "I'll find out. But you need to be ready for what that means. Some people hire me hoping I'll prove them wrong. I usually don't." I told him I was ready. I wasn't. He explained the process: surveillance, documentation, timeline reconstruction, all legal, all admissible in court if it came to that. He'd follow her, document where she went, who she met with, how long she stayed. He'd compile everything into a detailed report with photos, timestamps, the works. It would take a few weeks, maybe longer, and it wouldn't be cheap. I didn't care about the cost. I cared about the truth. While Michael did his work, I did mine. I started documenting everything I could access legally. Joint credit card statements showing hotel charges I didn't recognize. Our shared calendar with work events that seemed suspicious. Text message timestamps from her phone bill that didn't match her explanations about being in meetings. Every night after she fell asleep, I'd quietly get up, go to my home office, and add to the folder on my laptop. Screenshots, bank statements, timeline notes. I organized it all chronologically, cross-referencing dates and times, creating a picture of the affair that was starting to come into focus. By week 3, I had 47 pages of documentation. Bank charges at hotels on nights she claimed to be working late at the office. Uber rides to Ryan's neighborhood, calendar events she'd deleted, but that still showed up in the trash folder of our shared Google account. In week 4, I found something that made my blood run cold. A deleted confirmation email for flights to Miami. 2 tickets, same dates as her work conference she'd mentioned last month. One passenger, Jennifer Mitchell, the other, Ryan Cooper. She told me the conference was female only, a women in business leadership thing. I'd believed her, told her to have a good time, wished her luck with her presentation. There was no presentation. There was no women's conference. There was just my wife and her boss spending 4 days on a beach in Florida while I stayed home and watered her plants. Week 6, Michael called. "We need to meet. I have your report." We met at the same coffee shop. He handed me a manila envelope. I remember how it felt, heavier than it should have been, like all that betrayal had actual weight. "It's comprehensive," he said. "Photos, locations, timestamps, everything documented. This is as clean as it gets for a fault divorce case." I opened the envelope, page after page of surveillance photos. Jennifer and Ryan entering hotels, leaving hotels, having dinner, walking together, his hand on her lower back, kissing in a parking garage. The timestamps matched up with nights she'd told me she was working late or having dinner with her girlfriends, but Michael wasn't done. "There's something else you should know. Ryan Cooper is married, 2 kids. His wife has no idea. And based on the conversations I overheard while following them," he paused, "your wife is planning to file for divorce next month. She's going to claim you've grown distant, that you've changed, that the marriage has been over for a while." The coffee in my cup had gone cold. My hands were steady, though, steadier than they'd been in weeks, because now I had clarity. Now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. "She's setting you up," Michael continued, "making you look like the bad guy so the divorce looks justified. Classic strategy." I thanked him, paid him, took the envelope, and drove home in a daze. That night I sat in my parked car outside our house for an hour before I could go inside. Jennifer texted me twice asking where I was. I told her I'd gotten drinks with a coworker. Another lie to match hers. When I finally walked through our front door, she was in the kitchen making dinner. She smiled at me, asked about my day, told me about some project at work, and I played along, smiled back, asked questions, acted like my world hadn't just been confirmed broken. But now I had a different problem. I had proof of her affair. I had evidence that would win me a fault divorce. I could walk into a lawyer's office tomorrow and start the process. Or I could do something smarter. Because if Jennifer was planning to paint me as the distant husband who'd changed, who'd let the marriage die, then I had an idea. A risky idea. Maybe even a crazy idea. What if I gave her exactly what she was looking for? What if I became that distant husband? What if I made her think I was the one cheating? What if I let her catch me having an affair that didn't exist? The next morning, I called a divorce attorney, not to file yet, just to consult, to understand my options, to see if the insane plan forming in my head had any chance of working. Sarah Thompson came highly recommended. Her office was downtown, modern and professional. She reviewed everything I'd brought, Michael's report, my documentation, the timeline I'd constructed. She took her time, making notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Finally, she looked up. "This is excellent documentation. With this evidence, you'd likely get a favorable settlement in a fault divorce. Probably 65 to 70% of marital assets, no alimony obligations. Your wife's adultery is well documented and irrefutable." "That's what I thought," I said. "But I have a question. What if she tries to counterclaim? What if she says I was distant, that I changed, that maybe I was having an affair too?" Sarah nodded. "It's a common defense strategy. Muddy the waters. Make it look like mutual fault. It could reduce your settlement." "What if she had evidence, fake evidence that I created myself?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Walk me through what you're thinking." I explained the plan. Create fake evidence of an affair I wasn't having. Make it obvious enough that Jennifer would notice. Let her catch me. Let her think we were even. Let her feel confident enough to expose more of her own affair. All while I continued documenting everything she did. Then, when we go to divorce proceedings, she'd present her evidence of my affair, and I'd reveal it was all fake, and present 200 pages of real evidence of hers. Sarah leaned back in her chair, tapped her pen against her notepad. "Ethically, I can't advise you to do that. It's manipulative. It's playing games. It could backfire." "But is it illegal?" "No. Creating false evidence of your own behavior isn't illegal. You're not framing her or anyone else. You're not breaking any laws. You're just engineering a situation." "So legally, I could do it?" "Legally, yes, but David..." She used my first name for the first time. "This is a gamble. If it works spectacularly. You'd have an airtight case, and she'd have nothing but fabricated evidence that you'd admit to fabricating. But if she realizes what you're doing, or if she doesn't take the bait, you've wasted months." "I have time," I said, "and I need her to be caught completely off guard. If I confront her now, she'll prepare. She'll lawyer up. She'll get her story straight. But if she thinks I'm cheating too, she'll get sloppy. She'll feel justified. She'll give me even more ammunition." Sarah was quiet again, then she nodded slowly. "If you're going to do this, do it smart. Document everything, including your creation of the fake evidence. Keep records proving it's fake, and keep collecting real evidence on her. Don't let up on the investigation." "I won't." "And David?" She looked me in the eye. "Make sure you can live with what you're doing. Because this isn't just a legal strategy. This is psychological warfare, and warfare changes people." I thanked her and left. She was right to be concerned. What I was planning was manipulative. It was a game. It was cold and calculated, and probably said something unflattering about my character. But Jennifer had been lying to me for 8 months, gaslighting me when I asked questions, planning to divorce me and paint me as the villain. So yeah, I could live with a little psychological warfare. The fake affair started that weekend. I opened a new email account, started sending myself messages from it to my regular account, flirty messages, inside jokes, made them vague enough to be suspicious, but not explicit enough to be obvious. I'd leave my phone face down like she did. I'd smile at texts that didn't exist. I bought a burner phone, used it to text my regular phone, saved the burner number under a woman's name, Rachel. I'd occasionally glance at my phone and smile during dinner, then quickly put it away when Jennifer looked over. I started working later, not every night. That would be too obvious. But a couple nights a week, I'd text her that I needed to stay late on a project. I'd actually go to the office, but I'd work on divorce preparation instead. Documentation, organization, building my case. I got a gym membership at a place across town. Told Jennifer I wanted to get in better shape. I'd go there twice a week, work out for an hour, and come home showered and refreshed. Classic affair behavior, sudden interest in appearance, new routine, time unaccounted for. The hotel receipts were the finishing touch. I printed fake receipts for hotels I'd never stayed at, dates that matched nights I'd claimed to be working late. I'd leave them in my wallet, tucked in with other receipts. Not hidden, just there, waiting to be found. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of playing this game. 3 weeks of watching Jennifer watch me. I could see her getting suspicious, the way she'd glance at my phone when it buzzed, the way she'd ask casual questions about my day that weren't really casual at all. Then one night, she made her move. I came home at 9:30, my regular late work night, and she was sitting in the living room, lights off, just sitting there in the dark. "We need to talk," she said. I played it perfectly, concerned, slightly defensive. "About what?" "About where you've been going, about who you've been texting, about what's going on with you." I let the silence sit for a moment. "I don't know what you mean." "David, come on. You've been distant for weeks. The late nights, the phone calls you take in the other room, the way you smile at your messages and then hide your screen." She stood up, walked toward me. "If something's going on, if you're seeing someone, just tell me. I'd rather know the truth." The irony was so thick I could taste it, but I kept my face neutral. Guilty, but trying to hide it. "There's nothing going on. You're being paranoid." I'd used her exact words from 6 weeks earlier, the words she'd used to gaslight me. She noticed. I could see it in her eyes. "Don't do that. Don't turn this around on me." "I'm not turning anything around. I'm just tired. Work has been crazy. I'm staying late because we're on deadline. That's it." "Then why the new gym membership? Why the sudden concern about your appearance? Why do you keep your phone locked now when you never did before?" I shrugged, looked away. Classic guilty behavior. "People change. I wanted to get healthier. Is that a crime?" She searched my face. And then, this is the part I'll never forget, she relaxed. The tension in her shoulders eased. Her expression softened. She was relieved. Because if I was cheating too, then she wasn't the bad guy. We were just two people who'd grown apart, two people who'd found connection elsewhere. It wasn't betrayal, it was mutual. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." We went to bed that night in silence, and over the next 8 weeks, everything changed. She became more careless with her own affair, coming home later, making less effort to hide her phone, meeting Ryan more frequently, because she thought I was too distracted with my own secrets to notice hers. She had no idea I was documenting everything, every late night, every lie. Every time she said she was one place and was actually somewhere else. Michael's surveillance continued. My folder grew. 50 pages, 75, 100, 150. By the time she filed for divorce, 3 months after our confrontation in the living room, I had 204 pages of evidence. Photos, messages, financial records, timeline reconstructions, witness statements from people who'd seen her with Ryan, everything organized, cross-referenced, irrefutable. She filed first, just like Michael had predicted, cited irreconcilable differences. Told her lawyer I'd changed, grown distant, possibly having an affair. She presented her evidence, my fake hotel receipts, suspicious behavior, the whole story I'd fed her. Her lawyer called mine. They proposed mediation, a simple division of assets, no need for a messy court battle, just a clean break. Sarah Thompson called me. They're proposing 50-50 on everything, no alimony either way. They think they have leverage with your affair. What did you tell them? I said we'd consider it, and that we'd be bringing some evidence of our own to the mediation. How much evidence? I could hear the smile in her voice. All of it. The mediation was scheduled for the following Tuesday, 1 week away. 7 days for Jennifer to feel confident, 7 days for her to think she had the upper hand, 7 days until the trap snapped shut. The mediation was scheduled for 10 a.m. in Sarah's conference room. Neutral ground, both parties present with their attorneys. The goal, supposedly, was to come to an agreement without court intervention. I arrived early. Sarah had everything prepared, the binder with all our evidence organized by date and type, 204 pages plus Michael's full surveillance report. It sat on the table between us, innocuous black binding, no indication of the bomb it contained. Jennifer arrived at 9:58 with her attorney, Marcus Reed. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of confident lawyer who thinks he's already won. Jennifer looked nervous but determined. She dressed professionally, dark blazer, minimal jewelry, war paint for the business of ending a marriage. She didn't look at me when she sat down. Reed did the talking, standard opening pleasantries. Thanks for coming. Hope we can resolve this amicably. Nobody wants a messy court battle. Then he got down to business. My client is filing for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. The marriage has been deteriorating for several months. Both parties have grown apart. We're proposing a straightforward division of assets, 50% each, no alimony obligations, clean break. Sarah nodded. And your evidence for this deterioration? Reed opened his own folder. Mr. Mitchell has exhibited suspicious behavior for the past several months. Unexplained absences, secretive phone usage, new routines and habits. We have hotel receipts placing him at various establishments on nights he claimed to be working late. He slid copies across the table. My fake hotel receipts. The ones I'd planted in my wallet. The ones Jennifer had photographed when I was in the shower. We also have testimony from Mrs. Mitchell regarding emotional distance, lack of communication, and general withdrawal from the marriage. Additionally, he pulled out printed text messages. Suspicious communications with a contact saved as Rachel, suggesting an inappropriate relationship. My burner phone text to myself. I'd wondered when she'd gained access to my phone. Must have been during one of my staged forgetting to lock it moments. Reed leaned back, satisfied. Given these circumstances, my client feels a 50-50 split is more than fair. In fact, it's generous considering Mr. Mitchell's behavior. Sarah let the silence sit. Then she looked at me. David, would you like to address these allegations? I nodded, looked directly at Jennifer for the first time. The hotel receipts are fake. I printed them from a template website, never stayed at any of those hotels. Reed started to interrupt, but Sarah held up a hand. I'm not finished. The text messages are also fake. Rachel doesn't exist. The number belongs to a prepaid burner phone I purchased specifically to text myself. I still have the phone, the receipt from purchasing it, and the records showing all texts originated from the same device. Jennifer's face had gone pale. What are you talking about? The gym membership? Real. But I never met anyone there. The late nights at work? I was actually at the office. Security footage will confirm that. Every piece of evidence you have against me is fabricated. By me. Intentionally. That's... Reed looked confused. Why would you... Because I knew my wife was having an affair, and I wanted to see how she'd react if she thought I was having one too. The room went silent. Jennifer was staring at me, her mouth slightly open. Reed looked at Sarah. This is highly unusual. Unusual, but not illegal, Sarah said smoothly. My client created false evidence of his own behavior. He didn't frame anyone else. He simply engineered a situation, and it worked. Mrs. Mitchell revealed her hand. She documented what she thought was an affair, built a case around it, and filed for divorce, believing she had leverage. She paused, let it sink in, then opened our binder. What she didn't know is that for the past 4 months, my client has been documenting her actual affair, the one that's been ongoing for 8 months, the one with her boss, Ryan Cooper. Would you like to see the evidence? Reed's confident expression faltered. That's absurd. My client isn't... Page 1, Sarah interrupted. Text messages between Mrs. Mitchell and Ryan Cooper, obtained from Mrs. Mitchell's phone during a moment it was left unlocked. 8 months of conversations. Pages 2 through 47. Private investigator surveillance photographs. Mrs. Mitchell and Mr. Cooper entering and exiting hotels, restaurants, Mr. Cooper's residence, all documented with dates and timestamps. She turned pages. Reed and Jennifer leaned forward, forced to look. Pages 48 through 93. Credit card statements. Joint marital credit card used for hotel rooms on 14 separate occasions. Dates match Mrs. Mitchell's claimed late work nights. Pages 94 through 132. GPS data from Mrs. Mitchell's phone showing locations that contradict her stated whereabouts. Calendar events, deleted but recovered from shared Google account trash folder. Jennifer made a sound. Small, broken. Reed put a hand on her arm, but she shook him off. Pages 133 through 167, witness statements, hotel staff, restaurant servers, Mr. Cooper's building doorman, all confirming the relationship. And finally, pages 168 through 204, detailed timeline reconstruction. Every lie, every secret meeting, every moment of deception, organized chronologically. Sarah closed the binder. Additionally, we have sworn testimony from Michael Williams, the licensed private investigator who conducted the surveillance. All of this evidence is admissible in court. All of it is documented according to legal standards. And all of it proves Mrs. Mitchell has been conducting an extramarital affair for 8 months. Reed was flipping through the pages now. His face had lost all its confidence. Jennifer was crying, silent tears running down her face, shoulders shaking. Given this evidence, Sarah continued, we're proposing a different settlement. 70% of marital assets to my client, 30% to Mrs. Mitchell. No alimony. Fault divorce on grounds of adultery. We file next week unless we reach an agreement today. Reed looked at Jennifer. I need to speak with my client, privately. They left the room. Sarah and I sat in silence. I could hear voices in the hallway. Jennifer's voice rising, then falling. Reed's calm lawyer tones. It lasted 20 minutes. When they came back, Jennifer's eyes were red. She wouldn't look at me. Reed spoke quietly. My client admits to the relationship with Mr. Cooper. He paused, cleared his throat. She wants to know how long you knew. 4 months, I said, and you pretended to have an affair to, what? Trap her? I documented her affair to protect myself in divorce proceedings. The fake affair was insurance. I knew she was planning to file and claim I'd changed, grown distant. I gave her evidence that supported that narrative while gathering real evidence against her. Jennifer finally looked at me. Her voice was barely a whisper. You manipulated me. You cheated on me for 8 months. You gaslighted me when I asked questions. You planned to divorce me and make me look like the bad guy. I just made sure the truth came out. But you lied. You made me think... I made you think I was doing exactly what you were actually doing, yes. And you know what happened? You felt relieved. Because if I was cheating too, then you weren't the villain. You could justify it. Tell yourself we'd just grown apart. She looked away. More tears. Reed closed his folder. We'll need time to review everything and discuss options. You have until Friday, Sarah said. After that, we file. The meeting ended. Jennifer and Reed left first. I sat there in the conference room, staring at the closed binder on the table. All that evidence, all those lies, all reduced to 204 pages and a settlement negotiation. Sarah sat across from me. How do you feel? I don't know. Relieved? Angry? Empty? That's normal. This isn't victory, it's just closure, the hard kind. She tried to make me think I was paranoid, crazy, and I almost believed her. But you didn't. You trusted your instincts, and you protected yourself. That Friday, Reed called, they were accepting our terms. 70-30 split. No alimony. Fault divorce on grounds of adultery. Jennifer would sign whatever paperwork was necessary. She wants you to know, Reed said, that she's sorry for all of it. I thanked him for the call and hung up. Sarah filed the paperwork Monday morning. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. But the fallout? That was just beginning. The thing about exposing someone's affair is that the explosion doesn't just hit them, it's shrapnel. It goes everywhere. Jennifer's mother called me a liar, said I was making it up because I wanted out of the marriage. Never mind the photographs, the documentation, the testimony from multiple sources. In her mother's eyes, her daughter could do no wrong. She called me manipulative, cruel, vengeful, said I destroyed Jennifer's life with my sick games. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, just let her say what she needed to say and then ended the call. Some people will never believe the truth, especially when it reflects badly on someone they love. My own parents had a different reaction. They were disappointed, not in Jennifer, in me, for handling it publicly, for creating drama, for airing dirty laundry. You could have handled this privately, my father said. Did you have to involve lawyers and investigators? Did you have to make such a spectacle? I reminded him that Jennifer had involved lawyers. Jennifer had documented evidence. Jennifer had filed for divorce. I just responded in kind. But to him, I should have been the bigger person, should have quietly accepted being painted as the distant husband, should have taken the 50-50 split and moved on without making waves. That's not how it works, I told him. She lied to me for 8 months, gaslit me, planned to take half of everything I'd worked for while painting me as the villain. I documented the truth. That's not creating drama. That's protecting myself. He didn't agree. We haven't spoken much since. Our mutual friends split down the middle. Some saw the evidence, heard the full story, and understood. Others decided they didn't want to be involved in he said, she said drama, even though it wasn't he said, she said. It was documented, verified facts. The group chat that used to buzz with weekend plans went silent. The couples we'd spent years with suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Dinner invitations dried up. 17 years of shared history reduced to awkward nods if we happened to run into each other at the grocery store. Some chose Jennifer's side outright, said I'd been cruel to manipulate her, regardless of what she'd done, that my fake affair was as bad as her real one, that I'd shown my true colors by being calculating and cold instead of emotional and hurt. I understood their perspective. What I'd done was manipulative. It was calculated. I had pretended to be someone I wasn't, created false evidence, and led Jennifer into a trap. Those are facts. But they seemed to forget that I'd done it in response to 8 months of lying, cheating, and gaslighting. Context matters. Then there was Ryan Cooper. Word spread at Jennifer's company. Could not spread. Divorce proceedings, affair allegations, too many people involved to keep it quiet. HR got involved. Ethics complaints. Ryan was the CEO. Jennifer was a marketing manager. There were clear power dynamics at play. The company's board launched an investigation. Ryan was placed on leave. 3 weeks later, he resigned with a severance package and an NDA. His wife filed for divorce 2 days after the resignation was announced. Jennifer texted me, "Ryan lost everything because of you." I didn't respond. Ryan lost everything because he chose to have an affair with a married employee. Consequences aren't punishment. They're just the natural result of choices. But Jennifer kept texting, calling, showing up. Once at my work, once at the apartment I'd moved into, twice just sitting in her car outside, not knocking, just sitting there. I never answered, never opened the door, never engaged. Her lawyer sent a letter, "Please cease and desist all contact." She did, mostly, but occasionally, late at night, I'd get a text. "I'm sorry," or "Can we talk?" or "I just want to understand." There was nothing to understand, nothing to discuss. The marriage was over, the divorce was finalized. We divided our assets 70-30 as agreed. The house sold. The accounts split. Everything legal was done. The final settlement gave me $595,000. Jennifer got $255,000. Our house, our investments, our retirement accounts, all divided according to the fault divorce terms we'd agreed to. The money felt heavy, like it carried the weight of everything it represented. I put most of it into a savings account and tried not to think about it, tried not to calculate that each dollar represented a moment of betrayal, a lie. A year of my life I'd given to someone who hadn't valued it, but the hardest part wasn't the money or the friends or the family dynamics. The hardest part was looking in the mirror. Because when I planned the fake affair, when I created those hotel receipts and sent myself those text messages, I crossed a line. Maybe it was justified, defensive deception in response to offensive betrayal. Maybe it was strategic, protecting myself legally and financially. Maybe it was even ethical, fighting fire with fire, matching deception with counter-deception. But it was still manipulation. It was still a lie. And every time I thought about those 4 months of pretending, of watching Jennifer watch me, of creating a false narrative to trap her into revealing her true one, I felt something uncomfortable settle in my chest. I'd become someone who lies, someone who manipulates, someone who plays psychological games with the person he once promised to love forever. Yes, I'd done it in response to being lied to and manipulated. Yes, I'd done it to protect myself from being financially destroyed in a divorce. Yes, Jennifer had started the betrayal, but I'd chosen to meet deception with more deception instead of just walking away with the evidence I already had. Was it worth it? The extra documentation, the tighter case, the better settlement? I still don't know. Some days I think yes. I protected myself. I made sure the truth came out. I didn't let her control the narrative or paint me as the villain. I fought back smart instead of angry. Other days I think about who I used to be, the guy who believed in direct communication, the guy who thought honesty mattered above all else, the guy who would have been horrified at the idea of creating fake evidence and manipulating someone, even someone who was betraying him. I can't go back to being that guy. That guy was naive. That guy got cheated on for 8 months and didn't even know it. That guy almost got gaslit into thinking his legitimate suspicions were paranoid delusions. But I'm not sure I like who I became instead. Maybe that's the real cost of betrayal. Not just the loss of the relationship, but the loss of who you were before you learned you couldn't trust the person you loved most. The loss of innocence. The loss of faith. I had to decide who I wanted to be after all this, who I wanted to become when everything that had defined me, husband, partner, believer, and happily ever after, was stripped away. That was the question I couldn't answer sitting in attorney conference rooms or reviewing bank statements. That was the question that followed me to my new apartment, my new life, my new normal. Who was I going to be now? The divorce took 11 months from filing to finalization. Not because we were fighting, the settlement was signed within weeks. But the legal system moves at its own pace, grinding through waiting periods and paperwork requirements while you're trying to rebuild a life from wreckage. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment across town, smaller than the house, but mine. No shared history in the walls, no ghosts in the corners, no memories of who we used to be lurking in the kitchen where I'd first discovered the truth. The apartment had a balcony that got morning sun. I'd sit there with coffee, watching the city wake up, thinking about how different everything looked now. Same city, different life. The furniture was mostly new. I'd taken a few things from the house, my desk, some books, my grandmother's quilt, but most of it I bought secondhand or cheap from IKEA. Starting over means starting over. No point dragging the past into the present. Therapy helped. I'll be honest, I didn't want to go. Thought I could handle it myself. I was handling it myself. I documented evidence, hired lawyers, protected my assets. I was fine. Except I wasn't fine. I was having trouble sleeping. Not because of grief exactly, but because my brain wouldn't stop replaying the timeline, analyzing what I'd missed, wondering if I'd seen the signs earlier, calculating how many times she'd kissed me after being with him, how many times she'd said, "I love you," while planning to leave me. My friend Marcus, actual friend, not someone who ghosted after the divorce, suggested therapy. Man, you went through hell. You don't have to process it alone. The therapist's name was Dr. Ellen Park, mid-50s, warm but direct. She didn't coddle me, didn't tell me I was a victim, didn't validate all my choices or condemn Jennifer's. She just helped me sort through what happened and figure out how to move forward. You're not responsible for her affair, she told me in our third session, but you are responsible for how you responded to it. And you need to make peace with that. Making peace with it meant admitting that my response had been both strategic and harmful, smart and manipulative, protective and cruel, all of those things at once. Not good or bad, just complicated. Betrayal doesn't give you a pass on your own behavior, Dr. Park said. It explains it, contextualizes it, but you still have to own what you did. I went to therapy every Tuesday for 8 months. Some sessions, we talked about Jennifer. Other sessions, we talked about me, who I was before the marriage, who I'd become during it, who I wanted to be after it. The work was harder than the divorce itself, but slowly things got better. Not fixed. There's no fixing what happened, but better, more manageable, less consuming. I started dating again, cautiously. A few coffee dates that went nowhere. One 3-month relationship that fizzled out amicably. I wasn't ready for serious. Maybe I wouldn't be for a while, but I was testing the waters, seeing if I could trust again. Trust was the hardest part. Not trusting others, trusting myself. Trusting that I'd recognize the warning signs, that I wouldn't miss them again, that I'd be brave enough to ask questions instead of making excuses for someone else's behavior. You were trained to ignore your instincts, Dr. Park explained. Every time you questioned her and she turned it around on you, you learned to distrust yourself. It'll take time to undo that. Work helped too. I changed jobs, not because I had to, but because I wanted a fresh start there too. New company, new projects, new colleagues who knew me as just David, not David whose wife cheated. The new job was actually better, more challenging, better pay, healthier culture. Sometimes good things come from bad situations, even if you'd never choose the bad situation to get the good thing. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during the marriage. Started playing basketball again on weekends, took a cooking class, learned to play guitar, badly, but who cares? Built a life that was mine, not ours. Jennifer tried to contact me a few times in those first months after the divorce finalized. Emails mostly. Long ones explaining how she'd been confused, how the affair had been a mistake, how she'd realized she'd loved me all along. I read the first one, deleted the rest unread. Then she stopped. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to a different city, started over somewhere else. I hope she found whatever she was looking for. I genuinely did, but I also hoped she'd find it far away from me. 14 months after I found those messages on her phone, I sat on my balcony drinking coffee and realized I'd gone 3 days without thinking about her. 3 whole days where my brain had been occupied with work and friends and grocery shopping and guitar practice and all the mundane details of regular life. It was progress, slow, hard-won progress, but progress nonetheless. People ask me sometimes, friends who know the story or dates who eventually hear about it, whether I regret how I handled things, whether I'd do it differently if I could go back. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that it happened at all. I regret choosing someone who would betray me like that. I regret not seeing the signs earlier, not trusting my instincts sooner, not confronting her the first time I felt something was off. But do I regret the fake affair, the strategic manipulation, the way I documented everything and built an airtight case? Some days, yes. I wish I'd been better than that. I wish I'd just confronted her with Michael's first report and ended it cleanly. I wish I hadn't spent 4 months pretending, playing games, becoming someone I didn't fully recognize. Other days, no. Because that strategy protected me. It ensured I wasn't painted as the villain. It guaranteed a settlement that reflected the reality of what happened instead of her narrative about it. But mostly, I've stopped asking whether I should regret it. It happened. I made choices. She made choices. And we both have to live with the consequences of those choices. The real question isn't whether I do it differently. The real question is, what did I learn? I learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. Not just trust in someone else, trust in yourself, in relationships, in the idea that love is enough. I learned that betrayal doesn't excuse your response to it, but it does contextualize it, and context matters. I learned that justice and healing aren't the same thing. I got justice. I'm still working on healing. And I learned that sometimes closure isn't a clean ending. It's not a final conversation or a moment of understanding or an apology that makes everything make sense. Sometimes closure is just silence, distance, time passing until the sharp edges dull and you can think about what happened without feeling like you're going to break. 18 months after that 2:47 a.m. discovery, I'm standing in a different kitchen, drinking better coffee, building a better life, still figuring out who I am in the aftermath of everything that fell apart. Some days are good, some days are hard, most days are just days. And maybe that's enough. It's been 2 years now since I found those messages. 24 months since 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday changed everything. I'm in a good place. Not perfect. I don't know if anyone's ever in a perfect place. But good, stable, moving forward instead of stuck. The apartment became a condo. I bought a small 2-bedroom place with part of the settlement money. It has that same morning sun balcony, a kitchen where I've learned to cook actual meals. A second bedroom I use as an office. It's home. I'm seeing someone. Her name's Emily, and she knows the whole story. I told her on our 4th date because I figured if it was going to scare her off, better sooner than later. She listened, asked thoughtful questions, and then said, "That sounds incredibly hard. I'm sorry you went through that." Not judgment, not horror, just empathy. We've been together 6 months, taking it slow, building trust the right way, through consistency, honesty, communication. She's patient with my occasional paranoia. I'm patient with her divorce baggage from 5 years ago. We're two people who learned the hard way that relationships require both parties to show up honestly, and we're determined to do better this time. Work is good. I'm leading a new team, mentoring junior engineers, finding satisfaction in building things and solving problems. The systematic thinking that helped me document evidence also makes me good at debugging code, silver linings in strange places. I talk to Dr. Park once a month now instead of every week. Maintenance therapy, she calls it, checking in, making sure old patterns aren't creeping back, making sure I'm building a life instead of just surviving. As for Jennifer, last I heard she's engaged to someone new, not Ryan. I hope she's happy. I hope she's learned whatever she needed to learn. I hope she never does to someone else what she did to me. But mostly, I just don't think about her anymore. She's part of my past, not my present. A chapter that's closed, a lesson I learned, but not the story I'm living now. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to one of the most complicated chapters of my life. I know it wasn't easy. Betrayal stories never are. They're messy and uncomfortable and full of moral gray areas. I've shared this story because I think it's important to be honest about how complicated these situations can be. There's no perfect response to betrayal, no rule book for how to handle discovering the person you trusted most has been lying to you for months. Some people would have confronted immediately. Some would have quietly gathered evidence and filed. Some would have tried to work it out. I chose a different path, one that was strategic and manipulative and probably said something unflattering about my character. But it was my path, and I've made peace with it. If you're going through something similar, if you're reading this because you're suspicious, or you've just discovered an affair, or you're in the middle of a divorce, here's what I'd tell you. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't let anyone convince you you're crazy or paranoid. You know your relationship better than anyone else. Document everything, but do it legally and ethically. Don't hack phones or break into accounts. If you need help, hire professionals who know how to gather evidence properly. Talk to a lawyer before you make any major moves. Understand your rights, your options, your state's laws. Information is power. Take care of yourself. Therapy isn't weakness, it's maintenance. You can't process this kind of betrayal alone, and you shouldn't have to. And remember, getting justice and getting healing are two different things. I got both, but they didn't happen at the same time, and one didn't guarantee the other. I don't regret finding out the truth. I don't regret protecting myself legally. I don't regret the fake affair, even though it was manipulative, because it worked and it kept me from being villainized in a situation where I was the one who'd been betrayed. But I do regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that someone I loved was capable of that level of deception. I regret that I became someone who could deceive in return, even strategically. Life is complicated, people are complicated, and sometimes the story doesn't have clear heroes and villains, just people making choices and living with consequences. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own situation, if it gave you a perspective you needed, then sharing it was worth it. Sometimes hearing that someone else survived the worst chapter of their life is exactly what we need to get through our own. Take care of yourselves, trust your instincts, document everything, and remember, you deserve honesty, you deserve trust, you deserve a partner who shows up for you the way you show up for them. Thanks for listening.